Hello and welcome back to Buckets WNBA edition. We are back with it's the same person. What did I said I was going to have rotating guests. What is Calvin Wetzel doing here again? Dano the King embodied the I got too important at work and now it's ruining my life. So Dano was not able to make it this week. So I said, who has the ability to on a last second substitution talk about WNBA awards, just with that depth of knowledge right there, it had to be Calvin. So Calvin, we're going to be getting some other guests eventually, I promise you guys. But Calvin, we decided to run it back. So, long time no see. How you doing? You excited to chat some awards here?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Hey, shout out to me for not being important at work or anywhere else, so that I was free to hop on with you.
Yeah, big shout out. No, you're killing it so much. What is work? You don't even know these days. So we are going to indeed talk some awards. Last episode we did some win totals. We did some of those player props. This is what I'm really excited for. WNBA awards are really, really soft. We're going to talk about some of these markets. Some of these markets are incredibly mispriced. It's always, with WNBA in general, with women's sports in general, it's always a little bit of a challenge to get down, especially on long shots. It can be a challenge to get down, but hopefully, you can find ways to do it. And in these, the odds as is, there's some long shots out there that even if you can only get a little bit, hopefully we'll get you some winners that will still get you some dollars. So, Calvin, you and I already did a little overview of this on the other podcast there over at Bet She Wins, but I saved a few plays for this. I think you've got a few plays that have popped up in the interim as well. And then we can kind of talk through the markets as a whole. I think I know the answer to this because, we were chatting about all the time, but it's rare to find someone who loves WNBA futures as much as I do. But you want to kind of talk through, your bona fides with WNBA futures and kind of awards in general and what you love about these markets?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to claim to be as good as you at futures because I don't know if anyone is. They call you Jimmy Longshots for a reason, but I do love them, like you said, and I've been betting WNBA futures and day to day since 2021. But in 2021, the extent of futures was who's going to win the championship and who's going to win the MVP, and obviously a lot has changed since then. We've continued to get more and more futures. 2023, we got win totals. We started to get Rookie of the Year a few years ago, and now we have the whole awards slate that we're going to get into. This is the first year that we've had any award other than Rookie of the Year or MVP. So I've been betting futures for a while, but some of these specific futures that we're going to talk about are new to me just because they're new to everyone. They're new to the market, but that makes it really exciting.
Yeah, well, and you can tell that it's new to the market because I'm gonna actually lead us right off because I think this is a very natural segue to talk about our first award, which is Sixth Player of the Year. This is an award that you can tell that they're still figuring it out because as of right now, so I'm gonna read off as we go word by word. I'm gonna talk through some of who the favorites are, talk about what wins the award, and then give out some best bets with Calvin here. The top five or so for Sixth Player of the Year, it's Tiffany Hayes plus 475, Marina Mabrey plus 600, Leonie Fibish plus 750. Those are the big three. Those are only three that are 10-1 or less. Guess what? All three of those players are going to be starting in 2025. Barring some funky stuff that the Valkyrie or Sun do, or if Marina Mabrey's traded. But as of right now, all three of those players are starting, which means that this market basically has, even if there's a huge hold, they listed the three favorites as non-starters. So we have unlimited potential here. The next few names, it's going to be Sophie Cunningham at 11-1, Maddie Seagrass 13-1, Temi Fagbenley 16-1, Dana Evans 16-1. So Calvin, I'm gonna talk through what wins this award in a second. But what's your initial takeaway from looking at those favorites and this award as a whole?
My initial takeaway is just what you said. Like, why are these starters favored? I know the answer. The answer is because they all came off the bench last year, and I'm sure what the sportsbooks did is go to the 2024 stats, sort by number of games off the bench and points per game, basically. Yep. And when you do that, you're going to come up with Tip Hayes because she was on the Aces. She was Sixth Player of the Year. You're going to come up with Marina Mabrey. She got traded to the Connecticut Sun and came off the bench for them when they still had their full complement of players. But how are you not looking at how the roster's changed over the offseason?
Seems important.
Marina Mabrey is the only player basically left over from that Sun team, and Tip Hayes moved on to an expansion team. Like, It doesn't make any sense. So just when it felt like books were starting to get sharper with WNBA, with spreads and things like that, because we have so many more people coming in to bet it, so many more eyeballs. All of a sudden, we have these new markets where it's like back to the books, not knowing what they were doing, like in 2021. So it's
Incredible
crazy.
opportunity here. So Tiffany Hayes is the reigning sixth woman of the year. And so I want to talk a little bit about what typically wins this award. One thing, this award, I'll talk through. There's a couple awards here that aren't perfectly one-to-one with the NBA, where we have a much larger sample size and we've been able to bet it for a long time. So we have a little bit of a history of, long shots and like where to target in terms of odds and all that. But for the women's side, the last two six player of the year have been from the top overall seed, and neither of them had averaged 10 points a game. Now, overall, it is going to go to a bench score. That is mostly the same, but this is an award that at times can go to a solid player, and especially like by analytics. Win shares was something that really popped when I was looking through this. Oftentimes, this isn't like, sometimes you'll get on the men's side like Jamal Crawford or something. It's a little bit airy. There's a little bit of 15 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, negative win shares on the season type thing. Most of the winners of this award in the WNBA are pretty good, and I think part of that is that, I hate using the word niche with the WNBA. It's not niche, but it has a more intense following. The people who are voting on these awards really know what they're talking about. You're not going to get as many casuals, as many strays. A lot of the voters on the men's side, casual maybe isn't the right word, but there's more narratives out there that easily, it's just like fill up some air, and it's maybe not as analytical as in the WNBA. So I think you really want to be targeting a pretty impactful, good player off the bench, obviously in a role that's going to be staying that way for most of the season, can score, but also just like it might just be like the best sixth player. Like scouting this award can be as simple as who's the best player coming off the bench, because a lot of times if they're on a good team, that's really important. So Calvin, before I talk through the names that are jumping out to me here, what are you looking at in this market?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything you said, no, good team, obviously, and just an all-around good player. And I think like the reason that you're looking at a good team specifically is because if you're a player who's maybe the sixth best player on a good team, like you would probably be starting on 5 or 6 teams in the league in the bottom half. So those caliber of players that are good enough to win this award are only going to be eligible for this award if they are on a good team and coming off the bench. So that's why you're kind of isolated. The Aces, I believe, have won 4 of the last 5 or 5 of the last 6, and most of them are different players. You can go back. Kelsey Plum,
5 of the last
6. Dearica Hamby, obviously Tip Hayes. So I mean, a lot of the other thing that tells me, and part of it maybe just how the Aces roster has been constructed over the last several years, but it almost helps to be a good team that isn't super deep, but does have at least one good bench player, deep enough to have one good bench player, but not deep enough to where that one good bench player is sharing a lot of the load in the second unit with anyone else. Like one of those teams that basically has 6 starters and then kind of that drop off from 6 to 7. That's kind of where you see this coming. That's been the Aces for the last 100%. Half decade or so. So those are the kind of teams and the players in those spots where I think you want to target.
Yeah. And my favorite bet here is going to be from a team that I think we both are pretty high on. They're one of the kind of big 4 if you look at championship odds right now. It is the player who is the 4th rank. So at least they have like, they messed up on these big 3, but there's awards here later where I like legitimately think the should be favorite is at like 60-1 or some crazy number like that. Here, I think the real should be favorite is Sophie Cunningham, and getting her at 11-1 still. I gave this out like a month ago. It hasn't moved as much as I would have thought. This market's kind of holding steady, which maybe there's other people out there that aren't entirely sure about who's starting and who isn't. But Sophie Cunningham's going to be coming off the bench for Indiana. We've already seen this team looks really good. It's preseason, but the ball is just popping around. They look really strong right now. That offense is going to be good. I think she's going to be playing 28 to 30 minutes a game off the bench. Joanna Bonner, I think, is going to be in a slightly decreased minutes. They want her ready for the postseason. Talked about this in the last podcast as well. I really like that Sophie number. That's one of my best bets of the whole episode. But I think there's other ways you can attack this too, because this is a market where it's so mispriced at the top. I don't mind taking a few smaller bites of the apple. Maddie Segrest, it looks like she's coming off the bench. Really love Maddie Segrest in general. I think she's a really good player. I want a little sprinkle there. Temi Fegbenle. I want to see, we haven't seen a Valkyrie's game. I want to see if she's starting. There's a very good chance she's starting. If she is, throw her under the pyre with the others. We don't need to be banging that. Dana Evans, I don't really want. She's hurt right now, and I've just never been the highest on Dana Evans in general. She will be on the Aces, which is qualifies as one of those top 4 teams. I'm not super interested. But there is a name lower down who I think is a name that you're interested in as well. And I think you maybe have one other name as well. So for me, it's Sophie Cunningham, and then some late sprinkles as we see who's starting and who's not starting. Who's catching your eye in this award, Calvin?
Well, Sophie definitely number one for me. First off, I mean, and if you look at the last 2 preseason games, she played great in that first game, and then the one that's just wrapping up now as we're recording was kind of the one where the Fever treated it as not a real game down the stretch, but their rotation for the first 20 to 30 minutes was pretty close to what you're going to see. Yeah. And Sophie was the first off the bench for Dewana Bonner, playing as much or more than Dewana Bonner. So. Yeah. Like you said, we've basically seen that what we thought with their rotation is going to be true. Some other teams haven't played in the preseason yet, so you should probably look out for the Dream, for example. We think they're going to start Bree Jones and BG together, but we don't know for sure. Yeah. They're going to play their first preseason game here this week, so keep an eye on that. If one of those comes off the bench, that's going to be a great look for it as well. I also like a few players that aren't listed. When you look at those players who are going to come off the bench and this is part of the market. The books really just not knowing what they're doing either, but in a way that doesn't help us as much as them listing all the starters as the favorites, is that some of the best non-starters are not listed. Hopefully we get these odds throughout the season and they become listed, but look at some of those good teams and the best players off the bench. You have Marine Johannes is listed on one book, I believe, not very widely available at all. Niara Sabali on the Liberty as well. Whichever one of those two kind of emerges as the best bench player might be a look, but she's not listed as far as I've seen. Carly Samuelson on the Lynx, I really like a lot and think has a decent shot at this award, but is not listed. So just throwing some names out there to kind of keep an eye on if these markets continue to stay up throughout the season and evolve and books figure out who should be listed and who shouldn't be listed. I would definitely look at some of those players, but I'm right there with you on Sophie being the best look for sure. And Maddie Siegrist may be worth a little sprinkle. We have seen the Wings in preseason action, and she is coming off the bench along with Maisha Hines-Allen. They're starting Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Smith, so that's a look as well.
The only thing going against Siegrist is I'm trying to talk myself back into the Wings, but I still don't think they're going to be like a top 4 team. And they actually have the opposite. They actually have some pretty nice depth. They've got a couple other bench players on that team that I actually think are pretty solid. So she doesn't fit it in that sense of the word, but she's also just a really good player who I want to be on in some way. So I that's why I'm even throwing her out there as a name that I'm still interested by. All right, let's move over to Rookie of the Year. We started with one of my favorite markets to bet right now, 6th Player of the Year. Rookie of the Year, not as fun, to be honest. So we've got, the Paige Beckers is the overwhelming favorite. She's coming in around minus 300 right now. You got Dominique Malanga around plus 500, and then you've got the rest all around 22-1 or longer. So this is an award that, in honesty, as someone who follows the pro game much more than the college game, I know you are really in the college weeds. This is never a market I'm really hammering. And then add in the fact that there's kind of these preseason consensus minus insane amounts of juice favorites. I really haven't taken a whole lot of time on this. The only name I'll wait. I'll save the one super long name that I want to throw out later. I'll throw it over to you. Do you like this award more than me? Are you invested here? Do you think this is an interesting market?
That's a strong way to put it. I think. You can make it interesting. I think there are ways to have an interesting conversation about it. I think in the end, it's going to be pretty uninteresting, and Paige is going to win it in exactly what everyone thought, and what the books juiced is going to be what's going to happen. I honestly don't think Paige is juiced quite enough. There are still some places where she's in the minus 200s or minus 300. I think I would go a little bit past that, minus 350 or minus 400 if I were posting these odds. Because basically, I think you're betting on will Paige get hurt here, or will she not get hurt, rather. And we have seen her struggle with injuries throughout part of her college career, but she came back in the last year or two, has looked really durable and strong and healthy. So, knock on wood, hopefully she doesn't get hurt, regardless of betting here, just for her sake. But when you look past her, the really interesting conversation where I think you can make this award interesting is who should be the favorite without Paige? Like I know you do a lot of golf betting, and they have those like
Yeah,
winner
yeah.
without type of
Yep,
markets. If
yep.
you had like a winner without Paige,
Yeah,
who should be the favorite? And that I think is a very fascinating conversation with a lot of different
yeah,
potential answers. For me, I think the answer is Anissa Morrow because I do not think that she is going to be the second best rookie when it's all said and done. If you fast forward to 2029, whatever year when these rookies are free agents and signing their deals, I don't think when you have those redraft articles come out that she's going to
yeah,
be the redraft second pick. But in terms of 2025 volume and production, her situation is perfect. She's on a Sun team that has essentially no one. And when you look at some of the other best rookies outside of Page, they're all going to be competing a lot more, I think, for volume and minutes. Now, I will say the devil's advocate to that is that the Sun do have Tina Charles and Olivia Nelson-Ododa, and it might be hard to play all three of those together. So
yeah,
you might see Morrow coming off the bench. They actually just started a preseason game since we've been recording, but Morrow isn't playing, so we still have no idea if she's playing, if she's starting or coming off the bench. I'll be a lot lower on this if she is coming off the bench.
yeah.
But you look at some of the others, Dominique Malunga, who's also not playing in this preseason game going on right now. She presumably is going to be coming off the bench, which, as a side note, might be a look for sixth player of the year as well when you go back to that. With
Yeah,
some of the other depth that the Storm are losing due to injuries, and the fact that Malunga was able to make it over here. I know she had some visa issues at first, but you could still maybe say she's the favorite. You could see if Paige were to get hurt or something, a rookie coming off the bench to win it this year, because there aren't going to be that many rookies who have that big of an opportunity outside of that. The Mystics, they lost Georgia Amore, unfortunately, but with Aaliyah Edwards also hurt for them right now. She's not going to be out that long, hopefully, but Kiki Iriafen might get a little more opportunity, and Sonia Citron looked really good in their first preseason
yeah.
game. So I'm starting to get a little bit higher on her in terms of the winner without Page market. But I still think just in terms of the odds, you're getting a lot longer odds on Morrow, and that would be kind of where you want to look if you do want to get in on the long shot. But again, at the end of the day, it's going to be Page.
Yeah, I am with you on it. The Page being basically, is she going to get hurt, and then you want to maybe a dart off of that. But the only name I wanted to mention doesn't even have odds right now. I don't even know if she's even come over and play, but I've heard a couple of smart people who know more about the people who haven't debuted yet than I do mention Janelle Salon. So that's a name I want to throw out there for folks to keep an eye on the Valkyries. If we see that she's over here and she's like getting some run as like a 6th or 7th player for the Valkyries. I know Snap Wilson of the 6th Podcast of the Year, love that podcast. He gave her a shout, and then over at the Athletic WNBA show, they were talking her up as well. So a couple of smart people that, as you're listening to other podcasts about the W, be listening. If people say names of rookies, be like, oh, that's a name to mark down and kind of keep an eye on. So let's move along to another award that I think is okay. It's not my favorite. Defensive Player of the Year. This is an award where in the W, the best players in the W are the best defenders in the W. So the top 5, the top 3, it's Asia Wilson plus 130. It's Aficia Collier plus 290. It's Stewie plus 1300. Everyone else is 20 to 1 or longer. And honestly, it's really a two-person race in their minds. Asia Wilson, Aficia Collier. Honestly, that's kind of how the award has played out. So in the last, let's see, we've got Asia won 3 years ago, Asia won 2 years ago, Fee won last year. So, and before that, it's a lot of other big names. It's Sylvia Fowles, it's Candace Parker. You go back a little further, you do get Natasha Howard and Elena Beard, who kind of breaks the most rules because wasn't a superstar and was a guard as well. This is dominated by bigs. Brittany Griner won the 2 before that. It's dominated by bigs. It's dominated by players who get both steals and blocks, was something that really jumped out to me. It's like very versatile, talented, just really good players. And here's the big thing. You need to have definitely a top 3, probably a top 2, and it really helps to have a top 1 team defensive net rating. So here are the last 10 years or so of team defensive ratings. It's second, first, second, third, first, second, third, first, second. So there's a lot of first and seconds in there. You really do need to have a good elite team defense. So that itself narrows it down. Now, the Aces themselves were not an elite defense last year. It's part of the reason Fee won this award over Asia Wilson, despite Asia having a great defensive year as per usual. So I don't mind looking at Fee. I think that the Lynx are likely to have a top defense as well. again this year. And the names usually are coming from players we expect in this award. There's a few interesting long shots here, though. Talk to me about what you see in this award, and if you want to tease out a bet or two, Calvin, what do you think about DPOY?
Yeah, I do think there's not nearly as much value here as there is in some of the other awards. Like you said, it does kind of feel like basically a two-player race. The Bet She Wins pod that we did with our friend Danny Barlavi a month ago or so, they really liked Aaliyah Boston and as a long shot, and I did as well. But she's not a long shot anymore. Is the problem?
Yeah,
I see one book I literally just opened right now. She's at plus 700, which is extremely wrong. I would actually take no if they offered no on that the other way. She was in the plus 5,000s when we did that pod. So go listen to that pod for Danny's analysis. But definitely want no part of that at plus 700 anymore.
Yeah.
Some of the other long shots, I know you brought up Jonquel Jones is maybe a dart throw. If the Liberty do lead the league in defensive rating, either her or Stewie, are going to be the big catalysts of that. But none of those are anywhere close to like the long shots that you're going to see the value on for like sixth player of the year, or even maybe like the next award that we're going to talk about to some extent. The only other one that I kind of like is Ezzy Magbagor. She's in like the plus 2,000s right now, plus 2,000 to plus 2,500 range at most books. I do think the Storm defense is going to be very good. Probably not number one in the league, but she gets so many blocks. She's one of the best shot blockers in the league. And if that Storm defense can finish second or third, and she is by far the driving force behind it, I do think that she's going to be at least sort of in the running enough to be worth a little bit of sprinkle at odds that are that long. So if you're looking for a long shot, I would maybe look there. But it's not rookie of the year level, but it is one of those where you kind of feel like what's going to happen, and the long shots aren't super intriguing.
Yeah. Like you said, Jonquel is the one that I would go for. 40 to 1 out there at Bet Rivers still. Mostly because New York's going to be elite defensively. Stewie is, she's not quite at her peak. We've seen it. We saw it last finals, last playoffs. We saw it unrivaled. She had the surgery in the offseason. They might be giving her a little more limited minutes. And Jonquel's the one, we've seen her get credit when credit is due. She won Commissioner's Cup MVP 2 years ago. She won Finals MVP last year. The voters are not afraid to give her credit when she deserves it. She's won MVP in the past. She's got a lot of hardware on the mantle there. So I think at 40 to 1 for a team that I think is going to be at least a top 3 defense and potentially could be 1 or 2. I think that's a nice fun little dart there, but there's not a ton in that market. So let's move along to the next one, which I think is probably, right up there with sixth player of the year for maybe my favorite this year. And that's most improved player. Part of this is that Caitlin's the favorite. We see this in a few markets where the Caitlin inflation, listen, you and I on last podcast, we're talking about like, the Fever are going to be good and Caitlin's going to be really good. I don't see her winning most improved player. And that's in part because her team's going to be a lot better. The stats, she's not going to have to put up insane stats. She was kind of carrying that team offensively a bit at times last year. She's got a lot more weapons. Her assists might be through the roof and her efficiency might be really good. And maybe it's just one of these, I came on before the men's side, before the regular season, was like, Wemby, he's not winning defensive player of the year. Like, they were going to be a bad defense. They were a bad defense until he got injured. It didn't matter because it was Wemby and he was going to win defensive player of the year. It might be like, we can't give Caitlin MVP this year. She's 1 year away, but we're giving her MIP. We're going to give her rookie MIP MVP. It very well may be the case, but it certainly doesn't fit any historical model. And I don't think the stats are really going to improve all that much. So I want to go a different direction in this. And the top 5 here are basically last year's draft class. It's Rakia Jackson. It's Aaliyah Edwards. I think I just wrote Aaliyah. I can't remember if it's Aaliyah Edwards or Boston. I assume it's Aaliyah Edwards who would be up there.
While you're talking, let me go look.
Yeah, Cam Brink, Angel Reese, Kate Martin, Camila Cardoso. It's basically last year's draft class. Now, in the NBA, it's very rare for a second-year player to win Most Improved Player of the Year. It has happened in the W. So if I go through here and list out the years that these have won, it is more typical to be kind of a fourth-year player. Last 3 seasons have all been fourth-year players. Year before that was a fifth. Year before that, 6th, 10th, 5th. But then before that, we do have a stretch of second, third, second. So in these waves where there are these, couple of strong draft class in a row, it is feasible. We are looking about 7-8 years since we've seen it, and it does historically skew more towards players in that kind of year 4, 5, 6. So I think there are a couple of interesting names on that side. But before I throw out a couple of names, Calvin, what do you think about this market, this award, and some of the names at the top here?
Well, I agree with the names, and especially the first name that you're going to say that I'll leave for you. I did just check, and it is Aaliyah Edwards, like you
Okay.
thought, who's up there towards the top. Aaliyah Boston is 11th, which is one of the top non-second year players, because like you said, so many top 5 or second years, and then Maddie Siegrist is 6th, and then you go to Cam Brink is 7th, which is probably wrong because she's going to miss at least a month, maybe 2 months. I don't know when she's back, but certainly not to start the season off that injury from last year. But so they're definitely kind of overinflating the second years here. And like you said, it's been a while. I believe, was it Jonquel Jones was the last second year player to win it, I want to say, in 2017. I'm
You
going
are
off the
right,
top of my
Calvin,
head
off
here.
the dome. Well done. Yeah, it is indeed.
So it's been a while. We're coming on 8 years now since that's happened. There is one that I like that I'm going to throw out there to look for that's not listed, but look for at the if they
think
leave
this is
them
a
up
really
again.
interesting one because the two players I'm going to throw out actually, ironically, are both second year players. It's a little bit it's not the favorite, and it's a little bit different of a situation. But talk to me about the person you've got there, because that does fit the model of not a second year player a little bit better.
Yeah, I think mine checks all the boxes other than actually being offered,
Being
but,
listed.
Yeah, which is a key exception, but hopefully the books get on it. This is a theme every award. We want someone who's not listed. Your rookie of the year, long shot even. But Ryan Howard entering year 4, that's been kind of that sweet spot for the last several years. This actually has often been like a very good player. We've seen, like a number 1 pick caliber player. We've seen Jackie Young win it. Obviously, Jonquel Jones won it and then became an MVP. That tier of a player, sometimes we see them win it when they are first entering that tier. Benijah Laney-Hamilton, maybe not like number 1 pick MVP level, but she kind of kicked off her all-star part of her career. She was like a fringe, like got cut once or twice type of a player, and then turned into an all-star and at the beginning of that trajectory for her, won most improved. So it is often a player that is like a very good, not one of those players who goes from like basically nothing to like the 7th best player on a team, but someone who like is actually pretty good and then becomes like elite good. We definitely see that happen sometimes, especially in year 4. We also, another key is that they have a new coach, Carl Smesko. And having a new coach in general, I think, helps, just because you kind of have a change of scenery and a new system, and sometimes things look different enough in that system that you can elevate your game and put up better numbers that way. And especially in this case, when that system is a very Morey ball layups and threes system that we have talked about on multiple pods at this point, going back to Bet She Wins, going back to our last Buckets episode in terms of Ryan leading the league in threes. And all the same analysis from that one applies here. I think Ryan is set to pop off this year when you talk about her playing in that system. I think she is going to do a lot of the stuff that Kirsten Bell did at FGCU. If you want to go back and look at when she played for Carl Smesko there and put up all sorts of numbers, won mid-major player of the year. Obviously they're different players, but just in terms of like how Smesko, I think, is going to try to use them, I think you can kind of go back and look at her stats, and it's going to look a lot like that. And that's going to be really conducive to winning most improved player. I think if Ryan can get up from 17 points per game into the 20s, if she can be towards the top of the league in threes, she's obviously a good rebounder on the wing. She's going to have numbers, and I think those numbers are going to be improved from last year, especially with the pace too, which is going to be up for them, which is going to help. Even if she doesn't actually get better, her numbers are going to go up from the counting stats from the pace. So I think it would obviously depend on the odds since we don't have it, but if assuming we got somewhat long shot odds just by virtue of her not being a second year player and them favoring all the second year players, it would be a bet that I would be looking to be on.
Yeah, I love that one. I hope that there's a danger in requesting it, because then they're onto it, right? But I think maybe we'll have to do that at some point, or hopefully she just pops up there at some point and we can get on there. Yeah, so I talked about there's two names here, and they actually, it's funny. I kind of went out. I was saying, historically more fourth year than second year, but the two names I'm looking at second year, the one is of that draft class from next year. The name I want to be on. You shouted out Danny earlier. Danny was all over this as well. Rakia Jackson is the one I want to be on. You can get her at plus 750 still. The number's down a little bit, but of that top tier, that she's definitely the one I want to be on. If you look at just last season, her rookie season, the first 20 games, she scored 10.4 points per game. Second 20 games, she scored 16.4. That it was night and day, the improvement she made as the season went along in her rookie season. Now they're going to be a little bit more of a spotlight on her. That team got Kelsey Plum. I think that's going to open things up for her a lot, while also not soaking up too much usage. I mean, Kelsey Plum's a high usage guard, but there's going to be plenty of the basketball in LA for Rakia, especially if she's really kind of making the jump that I think all of us think that she's going to be capable of. If she ended up averaging around 13 last season, if she gets up to that 17 range, the players typically see like a 7 points plus rebounds plus assists jump in their most improved winning season. They kind of go up to that kind of like 16, 5-4 type range. That's basically exactly what, she'd have to average, kind of be in the all-star conversation. Really good two-way player, really impactful player overall. Honestly, not all that dissimilar from Dejanay Carrington. Maybe not quite as much of a dog on defense, maybe brings a little bit more on offense, but kind of a similar type of wing with like, that kind of mid-teens type scoring output. So definitely she's the one of my favorite in that top tier. But then this is my favorite bet for the whole episode. This is the one I saved from, I teased out, a couple months ago when we hit these openers. This is my favorite bet. Leonie Fibish at 60-1. Now, she is going to be potentially overseas for some Eurobasket stuff. She still hasn't got here yet because her team is playing in Europe, but she will be here for good chunks of the season. And I think if she can manage, 35 games, I think she's going to be right in line to fit this perfectly. She's going to be on a great team in the Liberty. She's going to be moving into a starting role most likely. We saw her off the bench last season, but then by the time we got to the end of the season, by the time we got to finals, she was playing. So let me walk through it actually a little bit cleaner. I have it written out here, so why not use the notes, right? So in the regular season, she averaged 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists on 20 minutes a game. Those are pretty low numbers. If we're going to have to improve from those, it's a pretty low bar to have to clear. In the playoffs, though, she jumped to 31 minutes and scored 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. That jump alone might get you this award, to be perfectly honest. In the finals, it went up to 13, 5, and 3 on 36 minutes a game. Now, I don't think Leonie Fibish is playing 36 minutes a game all season, but if she can settle into that kind of 32 minutes, maybe 33 minutes a game, around 12 to 13 points, 4 to 5 rebounds, 3 assists, good shooting. We saw it. She was outstanding. You want to talk about like a truly impactful player. The impact stats will be there 100% on a really good team. She is a second-year player, but it's a little bit different when it's not out of, that draft class of players. She's a player who has plenty of experience overseas. Now she's coming over. I think that this is one of my favorite bets I've seen in a while. It's at 60-1 right now at DraftKings. I mean, I always have people message me, hey, this is going to move. By the time you hear it, this is going to move. I would play this down right now, like to plus 1,000 even. Like, and honestly, even at that point, if we learn how much time she's going to be missing for Eurobasket and it's not really all that painful, I think that she has a pretty good case to be the favorite for this award. So, getting it at 60-1 is like comically great. And it is my favorite bet of the award season. I'm hoping she doesn't miss too much time for Eurobasket or tweaks an ankle or something, because this is one of those bets where it's such a good edge, but still awards, long shots. It's you're talking about something that's way less than 50-50. So it's not even going to hit, even if it's, a huge edge, and plenty of things can go wrong. But this is definitely my favorite bet of the award season. Thanks for helping me keep this under wraps for a while, Calvin. I know you like this award as well. So you want to talk through what you liked about it as well?
I do. Well, unless I missed it, I don't think you mentioned that Benijah Laney Hamilton is out too, which is the whole key to I think this award. Yes. And she had surgery. Hope she recovers, but she's going to miss most or all of the season, which is going to be why Leo is going to have an opportunity to play 30 plus minutes in the starting lineup. And then, of course, Benijah was in the lineup in the playoffs and the finals last year when you mentioned all those stats for Leo, but that was when Leo took Sloot's spot in the starting lineup. Sloot had been starting in the regular season, and Leo took her spot in the playoffs, and now Sloot is gone. Sloot is in Chicago as well. So a lot of opportunities opening up for her, which is why we can be pretty confident that her playoff minute, maybe not 36, like you said, but her overall playoff minutes and volume from last year is going to translate to this year's regular season because of some of those absences. And also, like you said, even though she's a second year, she's, I want to say 26 years old or so. Most second years are around 23 because she had that experience overseas. So in terms of her player development arc, she's a little bit more like a fourth year in that sense. So I really love it as well.
Yeah, excellent. All right, that's the most improved player. That's the best bet. So go pause, go make that bet, come back. We'll be right here. We'll go on to the next market, which I think is a pretty interesting one as well. And then we'll end with MVP, which is, a fun one to talk through because it's MVP. It's a great award, but it's again kind of like DPOI where there isn't a ton of value. But let's do Coach of the Year. I think this one's a pretty fun one. Right now, Steph White is the favorite, plus 125. Then you have a tier of like 5 coaches right behind that. It's Sandy Brondello, Becky Hammon, Cheryl Reeve, Lynn Roberts, Nate Tibbetts. And then you have basically the rest at like kind of 20-1. If you shop around, you can even find some 40-1s out there. So this is a little bit of a weird award. So last year, Cheryl Reeve, that makes total sense. Before the season, the Lynx, that was our favorite best bet last year, by the way. Lynx, I think it opened like 14.5, got bet up to 16.5, maybe even a little bit higher than that.
Unreal number.
They like blew past it. I think they won 29. They improved year over year. And even though there was a Nafisa Collier element to it where like we knew this team was going to be good, the expectations were certainly not at that level. Year before that was Steph White for the Connecticut Sun. We're talking through this, in a group chat the other day with a friend, talking about how I was like, the Connecticut Sun were established. This seems like a weird award. They only won 2 more games than the year before. It was because they had lost Jonquel Jones. The preseason expectations were a little bit lower, so they were able to exceed those expectations. It wasn't necessarily the year over year. It was more over the preseason expectations. The year before that was Becky Hammon. That, again, wasn't a huge jump in wins. It was a first-year coach. So there's not a great pattern here on the W side. It looks like, again, I kind of think this is going to kind of be the refrain of the podcast here, but it kind of feels like it's just who did the best job coaching. like it seems like it's like, oh, last year, Cheryl, clearly the best job coaching. Oh, the Sun lost Jonquel Jones, actually won 2 more games. That's a great job coaching. Becky Hammon came in her first year and like clearly leveled the Aces to, a tier that they had not been able to reach under Lambier. That's the best job coaching. That makes it a little bit tougher to cap. I love doing the Brandon Anderson, like what are the rules history-wise of what gets you there? Let's check those boxes and find the names of the long shots that fit it. That being said, I think there are some interesting names here. So why don't you talk to me about what you're seeing in this market and what you think about the market historically as well?
Yeah, well, as much as it is kind of just who did the best job coaching, I do think there are a few boxes that you got to check. Number one, no one's ever won this below 500.
Yep.
Only a few coaches, I believe 4, filling in last minute. I didn't have a chance to research exactly, but I want to say off the top of my head, it's 4 coaches have won it below 600, between 500 and 600. So the vast majority of coaches are above 600. Yeah. So with some of your long shots, you can kind of rule out anyone who even if you think they're going to be a great coach, their preseason expectations are to be 12th or 13th, and they end up getting like 8th, way outdo their expectations, finish 450, probably still not going to win it. Has never happened before. So you can kind of rule out a chunk of the league just from that. You're looking at least good teams, maybe not have to be elite. And then it's hard to win back-to-back. So Cheryl Reeve, I think, is appropriately a longer shot than last year, even though she won it last year. And then when you talk about the expectations, it's tough. This is where it gets tough because like the Fever obviously have very high expectations, are certainly going to improve a lot over last year. The question is how much. I do think Steph White is correctly favored. I liked it at plus 200 when we talked on our Bet She Wins podcast. I don't like it at plus 125. I don't think anyone is worth taking at that point preseason. But there are a few other long shots who I think could sneak in there and maybe be 550, 600 caliber team and kind of outperform enough to win it. And like you said, the first year coach thing is a big deal too, because you can kind of look at any sort of improvement at all and attribute it to the coaching. Yeah, like in the Connecticut Sun, maybe we're a little bit different because they lost Jonquel and still improved by 2 wins, which is a big asterisk. But if you improve by 2 or 3 wins under the same coach, it's very easy to just say, some player that you added, executive of the year, you added a player that helped, or you just randomly happen to win a couple more games. You got lucky or maybe unlucky the year before. If you win like 2 or 3 more games, which is not very much of an improvement, but a little bit under a first-year head coach, the narrative is very
Yeah.
easy to be like, it's the coach, it's that's why, right? It's to who you give the credit and blame to can kind of change.
100%.
So first year coaches, I mean, Steph is a first year for the Fever, but not in the league. Carl Smesko is the biggest long shot I'm looking at. That's a first year coach in the league. And again, we talked about the Morey ball system. I think he's brilliant. He's a genius. Heard him called the mad scientist in college. Now he's taking that system to the pro level where he's going to have all sorts of toys to work with. It is going to be interesting because they might have that spacing issue when it comes to BG and Bree Jones, but that could end up helping him if he figures it out. Because
if he solves that, it's like Mad Genius solved the two bigs.
Exactly. It's almost like this thing that's working against him. But then if he still gets there, you look at that as even more of an accomplishment. So plus 2,200 right now. I like that in the plus 2,000s range. I'm not positive that the Dream are necessarily going to be above 500, but I think they will. And if he can get him into the 600s, then I think that he's going to have, a decent shot to at least be in the top
100%.
2 or 3, if not win this thing.
Yes, Smesko is one of my favorite bets here. Plus 2,200 at Bet365, plus 2,000, plenty of other spots as well. Yeah, he and Lynn Roberts were the two names I kind of had circled regardless. And Lynn Roberts, I'm intrigued by, but her number's a lot shorter. I think it's because a lot more people are interested by the Sparks, in part because Kelsey Plum is there. This Dream team's flying under the radar a little bit. Really talented starting 5. Every year we're intrigued by the Dream, and they kind of let down. If they clearly have the intrigue there, if they can even flip it to like 24-20, it's going to kind of look like, oh, they jumped 9 wins, even though like there's 4 extra games baked in there. It's going to look like a nice big jump. The Fever are going to jump, but again, there are those preseason expectations. So I think I'm with you on her being the accurate favorite, but it's just too short of a number now. One thing that's crazy about this award is there's 8 coaches in new spots. They're not all first-year coaches to the W, but they're first-year coaches to their teams. There's
most of them are first to the W.
Most
only
are
a couple
first to the
are.
W. And one name that I wanted to keep an eye on, and I might mispronounce his name, is Chris Koklanes in Dallas. I'm vaguely intrigued by Dallas again. Preseason game number 1 didn't look so hot. That defense looked just as bad as last year. They lost by like 50. So I'm holding off on this right now. But I do think the Wings have a pretty easy, like that. Their top 8 is really solid. And I don't know what's going on, what is in the water there, but they've got Kurt Miller as a GM. So hopefully he's like trading out the water. Hopefully he's filtering the water. I don't know what he can do, but I'm intrigued by Dallas again. I want to see it a little bit first though. This is a number I don't think is going to move by a crazy amount. Hopefully these are up throughout the year. And if we can buy in, if the Wings start to look halfway decent early on, I'm going to be intrigued by that number. But the other name I want to get out there, I'm with you on Smesko. Noel Quinn, again, I love my Seattle Storm this year. This team isn't going to necessarily jump a ton year over year. They were pretty good last year. I think they were 25-15 by the end of the season with a PyTag of like 27-13. Their preseason expectation, the win total was at 20.5, a few days ago. Now it's up to like 25.5. I think it'll probably settle around that 26.5. If they can get to that 30 win mark, that's like a pretty big tier. And that's kind of the Becky thing of, if you go from like kind of the like 4-5 tier to that top 3 tier, that's a pretty notable jump. So especially when she's being priced as the lowest odds, I think there's a lot. I mean, Cheryl Reeve, I don't think she's gonna win back to back. I don't think Sandy's gonna win it unless the Liberty just kind of run away with the league. But we often don't see those coaches win. We don't see Joe Mazzulla win Coach of the Year. We don't see Mark Dagnall win Coach of the Year. We haven't even seen it a ton in the W. So I think that those coaches are the ones who should be the longer shots. We see it every year in the market. See it for baseball too. It seems to be like a running misprice. So the longer shots in this, if you can pick, Noel Quinn is like basically the longest odds out there. I think that's not a great number and can be a great portfolio piece, even if the Storm are, if she's just in the conversation because the Storm having a good season and she's getting more credit compared to, some of these more established coaches like Cheryl Reeve, who won it last year, or Sandy Brondello. So Smesko is probably my favorite at 22-1, but I also like Noel Quinn at 40-1. Did you add anything there before we head over to MVP?
Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew she was long, but when you said she's almost the longest out there, I just pulled it up, and you're right. The only what I'm looking at right now, the only coach with longer odds is Sydney Johnson, which first off probably should also not be the longest because if the Mystics can stay healthy, they have a high ceiling.
And
Even
we've
though
got a
I'm
friend who's interested in that Sydney Johnson. I'm not quite there on the Mystics just because I could see them kind of folding things in with some of these early injuries, but Sydney definitely should not be at the bottom of these rankings.
No, agreed. And the fact that Noel Quinn is second to last, then when you look at teams like we said, who are almost certainly not going to be anywhere close to 500, teams like the
Yeah,
Valkyries, teams like the Sun, I don't care how. I mean, the Valkyries could double their current win total, which is down to about 8.5 after we did the last pod. I mean, they could go over that original one and get to 16. And I honestly still don't think she's winning it. Maybe she would deserve
I
it.
agree.
But again, we just have never ever seen that happen. So for coaches like that to be above Noel Quinn is pretty crazy.
Yeah, agreed 100%. All right, let's move to MVP. This is another award. It's a fun award to talk about. It's probably obviously the preeminent award in the league, like as in any league. But it's another one where there's not a ton of long shots. So Caitlin Clark is actually currently co-favorites with Asia Wilson. They're both plus 200. Navisa Collier's there at plus 380. Stewie's at plus 1200. Then we get a bunch of longer shots. This is basically, if you follow baseball, it's like control sort leaderboard, who has the most WAR. That's what the MVP has become. The WNBA is like, we've been doing that since before it was cool. You basically have to be on a top 2 team and top 2 in win shares. And that's like, and those two correlate heavily, obviously, because win shares comes from team wins. That's basically how this award is given out. You have to be one of the 2 best players in the league. There's not a lot of voter fatigue. There's not a lot of overthinking it. It's just who's the best player. So to me, I'm not even really going all that much down the leaderboard. I think that when this first came out, there were a few long shots. Like Satu Sabali was out there at plus 10,000, whatever 100 to 1 is.
13,000 at one point.
Yes, 13,000. So 130 to 1. That was just a crazy number because she could easily be a top 5 candidate. So sometimes those longer shots to build a portfolio are really nice. You can leverage them later in the season. John Quell's one who I kind of similar. She has the history, and maybe with Stewie taking a slightly lower load this season. But those numbers have moved around a little bit. To me, the most interesting is Nafisa Collier. You can get her plus 475 at DraftKings. I was just going off of one book to open up there, but 475 there. I think, again, Caitlin's a touch overvalued. Listen, if she leads the Fever to like a top 3 seed and she scores like 23 a game with 12 assists, and even if the defense isn't perfectly there, she's going to be in the conversation. But you really do have to get those win shares, and she defensively is not at the level of Asia and Fee, and even Stewie. Asia and Fee are in a tier of their own right now, and I think the fact that you can get almost 2.5 times as long odds on Fee as you can on Asia. Plus, I like the Lynx more than the Aces this year. I think that number for Fee is really good. She looked like the best player in the world at Unrivaled. Obviously, Asia was not at Unrivaled, but it kind of felt like a crowning of like, if not, the best player, it's her and Asia, and they're the 2 best players in the world, and they should be co-favorites, and Caitlin should be plus 475 instead of the other way around. So I'm guessing you're of similar mindset here, but let me know your thoughts on MVP.
I am, and I feel like I keep saying this on the last 2 pods here, but this is another one where you can go back and repeat a lot of the analysis from earlier when you go back to the last pod and us talking about the Lynx and why I liked the Lynx as a team this season. A lot of that same analysis applies to Fee, I think, as MVP in terms of just being pissed off at how last season ended, and I think she's made it known. I don't think she's really hidden from that
She's
fact.
not hiding that at all. Yeah.
And like you said, Unrivaled, we talked about that on the last pod too, being a potential springboard in the same way that some overseas leagues have, in the same way that Athletes Unlimited has, and she won MVP of that one. So she's prime. She's just entering her prime right now. And this is like the Lynx are on that trajectory. You can always look back at teams and players, their kind of career arc, and kind of pinpoint like where certain things happen, like where they entered this tier, where they entered that tier. And this feels like that exact point on the Lynx in Nafisa Collier's arc, where they enter that like championship MVP type of tier. Obviously they were right there last year, but didn't get over the hump. And this feels like the year where they do get over that hump. So I'm fully with you on Fee.
Yeah, I love that. I'm 100% with that. I think that's a really, really well said of like, yeah, you can follow those arcs. It does feel like a crown. Like this year, if it comes with a crowning of Nafisa Collier, will be like, it will make a lot of sense. 100%. All right, let's quickly recap the best bets. Let's go best bet by bet here. So Sixth player of the year, I'm going to say my official best bet is going to be Sophie Cunningham at plus 1100. And then we talked through some sprinkles, but the best bet for me is Sophie at 11-1. Do you have any bets you want to add as an official best bet?
Not that are listed on
Yeah,
sportsbooks,
yeah.
so I'm just going to go with Sophie for you. If we had Carly Samuelson listed, I would think about that one. But in terms of what we got, Sophie.
Do we want to do an official bet for rookie of the year? I personally am going to pass. Do you have any that you do want to pull the trigger on?
I'm going to pass on a best bet here too. I don't think there's enough value on any of the long shots at this point, or on Page. Even though I think Page is a little bit of value still, it's not really worth anything big at this point.
Yeah, agreed. Defensive player of the year, I am going to say a sprinkle on Jonquel Jones at 40-1 is going to be a best bet for me. Not obviously in part because you're getting 4 times as the payout on Jonquel as you are on Sophie, but also the Sophie would be like a multiple unit play. Like basically, it's like one of those where whatever you can get down, you're not going to be able to get down as much as you want. Sophie, I really love. Jonquel's like, let's sprinkle it. Let's put 0.25 units to win 10 would be kind of the level I'd be looking at on Jonquel. Is there anything you want for DPOI here?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say Ezzy. I'll give a little sprinkle on Ezzy around plus 2,500. You can go, 0.1 units
Nice.
To win 2.5, whatever that is.
Perfect. Most improved. This again, I do have an absolute favorite, Leo Phoebish. Let's do like that as much as you can. Type at 60-1. Play it down to 10-1. If it gets into single digits, hit me up and I'll let you know how I'm feeling. I do want to check that Eurobasket stuff because that's going to be the biggest thing is how much time she's missing for Eurobasket when she gets over here because her team's actually still in the playoffs right now. So anything to 10-1, really, really love that bet. And I'll sprinkle Rakia as well. We'll shout out Danny again as well, who I think was originally on that play. It's moved a little bit, but that plus 750, I do think is a nice pairing with Phoebish too, because this is another award. We talked about sixth player of the year where when a market's mispriced, it doesn't hurt to have a few pieces. So I think with Rakia and Phoebish, you're in really good spot. And I like, again, another player, if we could get here, are there any that you want to make a best bet?
Yeah, we're on repeat here. I'm just going to go with you in terms of what we got offered because sadly still do not have Ryan Howard odds yet. So
you did have a player here actually that I know you have bet and that you didn't talk through in the run of play. Do you want to mention her briefly and do you want to make that a little sprinkle on a best bet or are you all set?
Yeah, let's do it. I kind of forgot to mention her the first time. Got so hyped talking about Ryan because I'm so high on her. But Nalissa Smith, I do think is worth a little sprinkle. So I wasn't gonna make it a best bet because I didn't bring it up the first time. But let's go ahead and do it. Thank you for bringing me back to that. Most books plus 5,000 or longer, plus 6,000. I saw on one book before we hopped on here.
She got hurt in Dallas game 1, right?
She did. She got the start, which is big. That was something I was watching for because there were reports that she was coming off the bench in like a practice scrimmage or something a week ago. She did get the start. She is in a new situation, new coach, new team, things like that, where she's going to get a lot of opportunity to thrive. And playing next to Arike and Page is going to open up a lot of opportunities on rolls and on putbacks, which she's very good at as an offensive rebounder.
Putbacks. It might be like the Kobe assist. She
exactly.
might be cleaning those up.
Exactly. Plenty of those to go around. And of course, when McCowan's on the court, that's going to be her kind of lane. But when they go small ball, that Kalani Brown is gone. Now that's going to be all Nalissa Smith. So I do think she's going to have a chance to put up some counting stats. It might depend on what you talked about with voters, how much they look at like the deep analytics versus just the counting
She's
stats.
Not as deep impactful, yeah.
Right. So there's a caveat there, but just in terms of the pure counting stats, I do think she's going to have a chance to, she averaged 11 in a game last year. I think she's got a chance to get back up to that 15 range or so that she averaged before Caitlin came to the 100%. Fever. So if she can do that and maybe 8 or 9 rebounds, she's going to be at least in the running worth plus 5,000, plus 6,000.
Love it. And for the final two, I'll let you go first because we keep agreeing and then you just have to say, I agree with Jim. So I'll let you lead for Coach of the Year and MVP. Why don't you do Coach of the Year first? What is your best bet here?
I appreciate that. Yeah, you might have to agree with me then on these. I'm going with Smesko plus 2,200 as my best bet for Coach of the Year. Another little sprinkle. And then for MVP, the only one that I still see value on the board at this point is Nafisa Collier. I like that plus 475 number.
For Coach of the Year, I'll join you on Smesco, 22-1, and I will sprinkle Noelle Quinn at 40-1 as well over at DraftKings. I would take it if she's in that like 22-ish type range as well. Smesco, I think I would take down to like 12 to 15 range. I think that's a really good play. I keep falling for the dream. What could possibly go wrong? The dream and the wings. They've never burned me before, right? What could possibly go wrong? And then I will end agreeing MVP. Plus 475. I think that is a really good number. I think it should be, she's around plus 200 and Caitlin's more around plus 475. So I think Fee's one, and hopefully MVP is one that these markets will move around a bit, especially as people listen to this, or if it's posted in the app. I don't think MVP is going to move a ton, especially because of that Caitlin anchor. It's going to make the market a little bit harder to move. So hopefully you're able to get on a few of these. We've got a few episodes coming up. We'll give Calvin a break. We'll put him back in the bullpen for a few. I've got East and West previews coming up. Really excited. I'll go ahead and say who we get going on here on the Eastern Conference preview. We're gonna have Kayla Dos Santos. Had to get her on if we're talking anything East Coast in general. Especially Connecticut. That's her specialty. So really excited to have her on. And then we're gonna get Danielle Alvari on for Western Conference. LA Danielle. She had to be out there for the Western Conference preview. So I don't know if they've been, I think Danielle's been on Buckets before. I know Kayla's been on Bet She Wins before. So hope you're familiar with them. They are both awesome. Really excited to do those episodes. Then we're into opening night. We're going to have an action buddy. We'll keep that one a surprise for this week. We'll roll these out a little bit at a time, but we're going to have opening night before too long. So we're almost there. In the meantime, everyone, make sure you download the app. Obviously, like and subscribe on YouTube. Give a follow in the app to anyone who comes on here, trying to get only the sharpest people on here, of course. Give out the winners. Thanks to David Payne, audio. Give for Ghoul, YouTube. Calvin, thanks for hopping on last second. Hopefully you had a good time talking through the awards.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to be on here with you, and just want to let the people know, make sure you're watching preseason, because this is the first year that all the preseason games are televised. Yes. And they're going to give you a lot of info about what to look for in terms of starting lineups and stuff like that. We
may or may not have delayed this podcast a little bit to be live betting some of that, which, by the way, I think it hit. So good news on the live betting the preseason stuff. Definitely if you're just watching and you have a feel for the W at all, you'll be able to probably make some winning bets. So with that said, thanks for coming on, Calvin, and let's get buckets.